And greetings. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. My name is Steve Deace. You know, I thought it was odd that you asked me, Todd Erzin. Do you have any problems on the trip back? I'm like, I just saw you yesterday, dude. I had totally forgotten, though, that I saw you from Dallas, Texas. Like, that was kind of an odd question.
It's been a month for you, huh?
Yeah, I've done. It's just.
Who am I?
I've seen things. I totally forgot I was in Dallas, Texas doing the show yesterday. I totally forgot. So he's Todd Erzin. He's Aaron McIntyre. Hopefully, for the foreseeable future, when we do this show, it's going to be in this room, all three of us together. All right. At least hopefully for
beautiful.
the next few weeks. I when I got home last night and unpacked, man, I was literally talking to my suitcase, and I'm like, I really hope I don't see you again for a while. Okay. It's been a last couple of months for sure. Nevertheless, we are back home here within the comfy confines of our home studio here in Des Moines. Hey, real quick, today's a big day here at the Blaze. We are making here at Blaze TV our first foray into original entertainment. It debuts tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, is the premiere of Reopening. It's kind of the woke comedy, or the non-woke, I should say. Kind of the non-woke comedy flick Hollywood would never produce. It's a mockumentary. Think of Waiting for Guffman meets The Office, of following a cast and crew of a small community theater that they're struggling to reopen during the heart of the COVID pandemic. It's a brilliant work of satire that uses humor to expose, ridicule all the insanity that swept the nation during the pandemic, and frankly, much of it still is here underneath the surface if you look hard enough. So if you want to laugh at wokeism, which you know me, I'm a big proponent of laughing at the enemy, mocking and scorning the enemy, embarrassing him, pulling his pants down. I'm a big proponent of that. Tonight, you can join in the fun. Head over to blazetv.com/reopening. Use the code REOPENING and get $20 off your subscription to Blaze TV so that you don't miss this exclusive comedy for just Blaze TV subscribers. That's blazetv.com/reopening and use the promo code REOPENING for $20 off your Blaze TV subscription. Don't miss it. Again, blazetv.com/reopening, promo code reopening. All right, speaking of movies, before we get to the show, a couple of nefarious updates that I think you guys will be very, very interested in. We passed about 360,000 people that we believe have seen the movie so far, which sounds like an incredible amount of people, but it really just goes to show you yet again the stranglehold on the culture that Hollywood really has. I mean, consider how many people have seen, it's in the millions, these other films, you know, like The Pope's Exorcist, which is total trash, and Renfield, that's total trash. I mean, that's an astronomical number. But yet it hammers home yet again why we need to invade this space. I'm happy to see the Blaze getting involved in this. We were very supportive previously, even though we're technically competitors, I guess. By the way, thank you, Andrew Clavin, for a very nice review and endorsement of Nefarious yesterday over at the Daily Wire. I'm rooting for them to be successful with this. We have to invade this space. This is the last remaining space of persuasion. I firmly believe this, left in America, is in professional storytelling. It's the last place, left, I should say, for mass persuasion. So we just told you about the Blaze's first foray into this. And so, I mean, we've had 360,000 people watch our movie in 3 weeks. And that's a raindrop on a windshield compared to the hearts and minds that Hollywood collectively has a hold of in our culture. All right. If you are Canadian, I've gotten a lot of these questions, or maybe it's the one listener we have in Canada that's just asked me this question a lot. I don't know. Good news for you. We are actually going to do a Canadian release of Nefarious. I don't have any more details yet. I'm told it might be about 50 theaters in Canada. Canada is notoriously terrible to independent filmmakers. We think we might have actually found someone there who's trustworthy to book and collect for us. So we're going to give it a shot. We are going to do a Nefarious distribution theatrical opening in Canada, and I'll give you the details on that here soon. Also, we were approached by one of the biggest studios in the world about a potential global distribution, which means outside of North America, for the rest of the world for Nefarious. Now, they are actually the second major studio. I won't give you the names because who knows? We might make future movies, and they might want to do business with us then. They were actually the second major studio that approached us and said, "Hey, give us a screener. We want to look at it. We're thinking about picking it up for global distribution," and they passed. This company, because its roots are outside the United States, I'll just put it that way, is considered far less, shall we call it, wokeified than a lot of the other major Hollywood studios. So this time we think there's actually a chance that they will do it after screening the film. We don't think it's a great chance, okay? I mean, but they did actually come to us. So we think there's at least a chance. Better, not a Dumb and Dumber chance, okay, like a real chance, not a great one, like we're not, planning our retirements anticipating that this ship is coming in, but it's not a 0.0 either, So if that were to happen, then, that would blow open the movie. It would take this movie literally to every civilized, in its message to every civilized nation on earth. So as a group, we had a conference call yesterday on my way to the airport. And, we're just, at this point, God will have to make that happen. But the door's at least open. So that's promising. Finally, we are heading in, starting tomorrow, into the 4th week of our theatrical release for Nefarious. This will be the week that we'll decide, this weekend and into next Thursday, we'll decide whether we get squeezed out of theaters. And we are planning to go to streaming and PVOD in late spring. And then we are planning to go with DVD sales in late summer, for those of you that have asked me about that, which is a lot of you. I am told by our booker that these 7 theaters are kind of the bell cows that the industry and the theater organizations are going to look at to see how we perform in these 7, because we actually may pick up theaters, which is really weird. All right, to add theaters in your 5th week of release, but our per screen average has grown tremendously in the last 10 days, and they're paying attention. So there's actually a chance we could recoup many of the theaters that we have lost. Because last week we actually grossed more money in 350 theaters than we did the previous week in 750 theaters. If that tells you how much our per screen average has grown. That math is not supposed to work that way. I don't care how good or terrible your movie is, it's not supposed to work that way. So there's actually a chance that we might increase theaters for the week of May 12th. Here are those 7 theaters, all right? AMC Owing Mills 17 in Owing Mills, Maryland. AMC Classic in Londonderry 10 in Londonderry, New Hampshire. Chino Hills 18 in Chino Hills, California. Westminster 10 in Westminster, California. The Flagstaff 16 in Flagstaff, Arizona. AMC MJ Capitol Center 12 in Largo, Maryland. And AMC Rivertown 12 in Oxon Hill, Maryland. Now, I got to tell you, I ain't feeling great that a movie about a demonic takeover of America's theatrical run is coming down to 7 theaters, and 5 of them are in Maryland and California.
Man, though.
I don't like our odds. I'm just going to be honest with you.
What were you just talking about? The math doesn't make sense?
It doesn't make sense. This would not be, Todd, this would not be a value play. This would not be a bet I would recommend making, okay? There's not a lot of value in this, okay?
I don't know, man. God's moving. That's why we keep trusting the normal way of doing business. Is that how God normally does things? No. He taps the shepherd boy and says, go kill that giant. So I like these odds.
So those are the 7 theaters again. AMC Owing Mills in Owing Mills, Maryland. AMC Classic Londonderry in Londonderry, New Hampshire. Chino Hills 18 in Chino Hills, California. Westminster 10 in Westminster, California. Flagstaff 16 in Flagstaff, Arizona. AMC MJ Capitol Center in Largo, Maryland. And the AMC Rivertown 12 in Oxon Hill, Maryland. If you live anywhere near those theaters and haven't taken someone yet to the film or haven't been there yet, and you can recommend people that are thinking about going, starting tomorrow, All right, because this actually, the business cycle in the movie industry for a theatrical release actually runs Friday through the following Thursday. All right, so starting tomorrow, this weekend, now's the time. And this will determine whether we get squeezed out the following weekend or whether incredulously we would actually add theaters in our 5th week, which is insane. That just doesn't happen typically. But we're kind of stubborn. So maybe we'll just hang around long enough and we're the Rick Santorum. All right. There's nobody else left. So no one else has nothing else to see. Everybody went to DVD and PVOD. You can't see Guardians of the Galaxy 5 more times. So there's nothing else left. I guess we'll try this Speak of the Devil movie because it's the only other thing out there right now. All right. So those are up on my Twitter account. Right now, if you didn't get a chance and you're looking at the list, and it'll be up on all my socials by the end of tonight as well. So you guys have been incredible and incredibly supportive of the film, and cannot thank you enough. I got an email yesterday from a guy who said, you lost our theater for this coming weekend, but I want you to know that since that your movie opened, I bought 2 tickets every single day at that theater. Every single day. Sometimes I found someone to give them to, sometimes I didn't. But I mean, the amount of people that we have heard from that have seen this movie 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, have taken different groups, different guests. It's incredible. So thank you guys very, very much. All right. And without further ado, let's get to the program. Today, Theology Thursday. Mark Driscoll is going to join us for that later in next hour. We're going to take a pretty wide angle lens view at the current culture. We'll have 3 non-political questions. Ryan Walters, the superintendent of Oklahoma schools, who just came to drop bombs. He is going to join us at the bottom of the hour.
He's Robert Duvall in Apocalypse Now. I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Just pushing buttons at this point. Yes, and I totally dig that about him. Actually,
you do.
Yeah. PK, by the way, I didn't know that. Pastor's kid.
Oh,
yeah. All right. So there's one pastor that didn't raise a soft-headed kid. So good on him. All right. But without further ado, let's get to it. Here's Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Quid Pro Joe. Congressman James Comer, along with Senator Chuck Grassley, sent a letter to FBI Director Chris Wray explaining they have documents, thanks to a whistleblower, proving then Vice President Joe Biden exchanged policy outcomes for money with foreign actors. Comer and Grassley subsequently announced a congressional investigation and subpoenaed the FBI. On Monday, MSNBC scored a primetime win over Fox in both the key age demographic and in total viewers, 1 week after the departure of Fox's highest-rated cable star Tucker Carlson. The network, MSNBC, beat out its competitors with an average of 1.693 million total viewers and 176,000 in the critical 25 to 54 age demographic. Fox News brought in an average of 1.598 million total viewers between 8 and 11 p.m. and 164,000 viewers in that demo. All the usual race-baiting suspects are circling the wagons after a homeless, mentally ill black man was killed on a New York City subway. Jordan Neely was making verbal threats and intimidating other passengers on the subway before a 24-year-old Marine Corps veteran, who hasn't been named, put Neely in a chokehold. Neely, who has 40 prior arrests to his name, subsequently died. As you can imagine, social media was sent into a tizzy, with some race baiters calling Neely's death a lynching. Late last night, video emerged of the altercation showing it wasn't just the Marine who was constraining the man, but another man, who was also black, by the way, held Neely down as well. Knowledge of civics among the nation's 8th graders fell for the first time since the federal government began testing children under the current framework. Back in 1998, the National Assessment of Educational Progress tests, known as the nation's report card, also show a 5-point decline in average scores in history. South Carolina Republicans joined forces to kill a pro-life law that would have banned nearly all baby killings from the moment of conception in the Palmetto State. 3 female Republican senators collaborated with an independent and a Democrat to filibuster South Carolina's pro-life bill over 3 days last week. The ban on ivermectin in Australia has been lifted. The drug had been banned for the last 18 months for off-label use. Starting in June, doctors will again be able to prescribe the drug off-label. Things that make you go, This story is from Joseph McKinnon at The Blaze. An election software company based in Michigan sued an election integrity watchdog group and its leaders last year for defamation over claims it had conspired with the Chinese Communist Party and subverted American elections. After months of denial and litigation, the company has withdrawn its suit. Connect is an election software company based in Michigan. It licenses election software utilized by various cities and counties across America. The Blaze previously reported that Eugene Yu, the founder and CEO of Connect, was arrested last October and charged on suspicion of data theft, having allegedly stored critical information that U.S. election workers provided on servers in China. Yu was also charged with grand theft by embezzlement of funds exceeding $2.6 million. According to prosecutor Eric Neff, the crimes allegedly committed by Connect amounted to, quote, the largest data breach in United States history. The Los Angeles District Attorney's Office dropped the charges in November, citing a, quote unquote, potential bias in the investigation. This alleged bias was in reference to the nature of the complaint that first prompted prosecutors to take a hard look at the company. According to the district attorney office, the complaint was Greg Phillips of the Texas-based voter integrity group True the Vote. Connect had sued Phillips and True the Vote's founder, Catherine Engelbrecht, for defamation prior to Yu's arrest. Engelbrecht and Phillips claimed, quote, Connect, its founder and employees are Chinese operatives who are spearheading a red Chinese communist op against the United States, that Connect is tied to the Confucius Institute, that Connect obtained contracts with certain U.S. cities and county voting districts after bribing public officials, and that the Chinese Communist Party is somehow controlling elections through Connect. That's according to the September 12th suit. Lawyers for Connect contacted True the Vote on April 18th, indicating the company was dropping its lawsuit for defamation, then asked the federal judge who had replaced the former presiding judge, Kenneth M. Hoyt, to dismiss the case without prejudice the following day. Again, that story, and there's more to it, you can read at The Blaze, courtesy of Joseph McKinnon. So essentially, kind of reading between the lines, it seems like this bolsters True the Vote's seemingly wild claims that this company was somehow interfering in U.S. elections. Why else would you drop this defamation case? Wrong answers only. And finally, Project Veritas is back with another sting operation, this time targeting Budweiser's marketing division.
Yeah, the boycotts are pretty heavy at the current moment, and that's why I was hired. We are basically trying to turn the whole situation around.
Okay, so do we have a plan ready, or are you working on it?
We do. It's a secret, but I'm going to. I hope this is between us.
Yeah, sure.
So we are trying to appeal to a new market. Muslims. Muslims.
But most Muslims don't really drink beer, do they?
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's the whole point. Because most of them don't drink, we can easily dominate the entire market from the beginning.
Yeah, but isn't that a bad business plan?
Exactly. Look, man, I don't know what people want us to do. Like, we went for the gay people, for the trans people, for the they and thems and all that. At the current moment, the only thing we can do is just to go for the Allahu Akbar people and hope for the best.
That's actually a parody, if you hadn't figured that out already, courtesy of Damon Imani. And that's what happened while we were away. Go for the Allahu Akbar people.
I know.
You had me for a minute until you said Muslims.
Then I saw Ryan Long's hand come in screen and start puppet mastering.
Well, that's because they don't drink, we can dominate that market.
It's genius.
It's not quite 10 dildos are better than one, and your father's a racist if he won't sit on one. But it's close. But that one will play. I like that one. Yes. Aaron's montage brought to you by our friends over at Jace Medical. Ran into the Jace Medical folks actually yesterday in Dallas, and they were making the rounds in the building, and were very, very complimentary to you guys in our audience about how good you guys have been to their company. And it looks like they're going to launch something new here soon. We'll be telling you about. And I got a little bit of the details about it yesterday. I'll get more later, but I'm excited about what they have coming next. But I want to make sure before they launch something new, you remember what they originally launched on our show. I mean, you just saw the ivermectin story in Aaron's montage. I mean, these were all venerable medications. You guys all know these stories. We've told you a million times. Hydroxychloroquine had been FDA approved for about 60 years. Ivermectin won the Nobel Prize in 2015. Combined, these two drugs, over the course of their histories, had been injected into tens of millions of people globally. And now suddenly, at the time where, frankly, the temptation should have been to go overboard experimenting on crazy things. Like, the temptation should have been, anybody got any copper bracelets? Let's give them a shot. I mean, at that time, instead, it went the other way. Let's pull this stuff off the market that's safe. May or may not work, but we all know it's safe. Let's pull that stuff off the market. As Aaron just said, why? Wrong answers only. That's why you want to make sure that you are prepared for when they try to do this again, because they will. Get the Jace case from Jace Medical right now. Fill out a simple online form. In some cases, if you have an allergic reaction to something like I do, I'm allergic to penicillin, and amoxicillin is one of the staples of the box. So I needed to talk to one of their docs about it when I got my Jace case, and we put, my substitute doxycycline in there instead. So if you have an allergic reaction, any of the, standard antibiotics out there, they'll want to talk to you and see what your substitutes are and if those are available. All right. Doctor created, though, doctor recommended. Make sure that you have peace of mind in your medicine cabinet right now that the next time they try this, because they will, you're ready. All right. Get the Jace case right now of venerable antibiotics just in case. When you go to Jace Medical, J as in jump at the offer right this minute, please. Your life literally may depend on it. JaceMedical.com. Use the promo code DACE and you'll get a discount at checkout on your order. JaceMedical.com, promo code DACE for a discount at checkout. All right, let's go to the montage. And really, there's one story that stands out to me above all others, particularly given the timing of it. So this was outstanding work here. Who was that on our Blaze team that you said wrote that story? Let's give him another shout out. Who was it, Aaron?
McKinnon was the last name. Let me just, Joseph McKinnon.
All right, so shout out to Joseph McKinnon, one of the staff writers for the Blaze. This is outstanding work, this story is. But here's a simple question. Wouldn't you think if you're a company that is handling votes in America and you believe you have been smeared, defamated, that you've been slandered with conspiracy theories and other charges that have no merit whatsoever. After 2 weeks ago, watching the pinnacle platform on the American right, Fox News, write a check for the full amount of what Dominion was suing them for. This reminded me a little bit of years ago. Remember when it was, I can't remember, there was a big personality at Fox years ago that had, I think, a sexual harassment or something suit. And he wrote, it was a huge number. I don't remember who it was, like $10-20 million to settle the suit. But I think he also said that he wasn't admitting any guilt. I don't know, man. If I'm not guilty of something, maybe it's different. Maybe you think differently when you have that kind of money. I don't. But to me, I kind of think I'd go the other way. If I can afford the kind of lawyers to smash you into talcum powder, hell no, I'm not cutting you a check and bearing that scarlet letter, because even if you're not admitting guilt, the fact you wrote them a check implies that in many people's minds, you're guilty, right? Who the hell cuts a $10-20 million settlement check or whatever it was at the time? I don't remember who it was. That's what I want to mention a name, because that might be a name and it might not be that person. And then I've, slandered somebody. But I remember this case. It was a high profile person. It was at Fox 10-20 years ago, had a sexual harassment case or something, and wrote the person who did it a big check without an admission of guilt. To me, I'm not admitting anything. If I didn't do anything wrong, I can get lawyers that will crush you into diamond dust for less than what you're asking me, right? For a few million, I'll get lawyers that'll make you wish your daddy wore a condom that night if you charge me falsely of something like that. So bring it. I'm not admitting something I didn't do. Well, Fox as a company just did this. They just gave Dominion the exact dollar amount they were being sued for in exchange for no admission of guilt. I don't know what you think, Erzin. I kind of think when you write somebody $1 billion check that's suing you, you give them the exact amount of money that they're suing you for, there's an admission of something there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least if I was on the other side of that issue from you, I'd think that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So along those lines, with that precedent set, you would think those in the vote counting and collecting, those in the vote collecting business associated with conspiracy theories, whether it's Mike Lindell or it's Dinesh D'Souza or it's me the morning after the election on the Blaze. All right. You would think after Dominion literally just got Fox to just full Lindsey Graham, drop trow and bend over. You would think you'd be emboldened now to go after your slanderers, right? Instead, on the heels of this company drops its suit against True the Vote with a massive billion-dollar precedent out there in its favor. And now you choose to walk away? What does that imply, I wonder?
You have to ask yourself what's more important than the cash.
Yeah.
And you've already said, it's right. This settlement, more important than the cash, took Dominion off the table. Mm-hmm. And Dominion is just an extension of all of this. The win beyond the cash is taking this off the table and just making it this is what I said the fear yesterday was, of the permanence of the scam, just making it normative. That's why they're not going to stop cheating in the margins. They just have to make that part of the thing. Same here. We got our win with Dominion, whether you're this company that I've never heard of or anything else. It's now normative. That's the win, not the cash. The fact that they will be cheating and stealing, using foreign companies and foreign nationals will be the ones doing it. Mm-hmm. It's just in the cake now.
I mean, if I'm True the Vote, why wouldn't I feel pretty emboldened right now? They backed off. Notice right before we got to a discovery phase, right before we got to a discovery phase, this company chose to walk away from its own lawsuit. And on the heels of you would think, an affirming, if not at least beneficial precedent with what happened with Fox and Dominion just less than 2 weeks ago.
Here's why they don't feel emboldened. It's because, Catherine Engelbright, she's like Julie Kelly. These women have just got to be exhausted. We just have... They should have armies behind them now, do they? They don't. That's the problem. Of course, yeah, if we get into Discovery, who wants it? How's Discovery going on the rise of the Fourth Reich and Nuremberg trials? We should have that by now, too. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. They're just, come get us. You're alone. What are you going to do?
What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, it's also telling. I mean, they're basically telegraphing. Hey, every accusation, as wild as they were or seemed, that's all true. I mean, you notice the LA District Attorney's Office actually took this very seriously to begin with. I think that's what the story said. Took this very seriously to begin with, and dropped the suit after they realized, it's some perceived right-wingers who wasn't that True the Vote? Wasn't that the documentary that did 10,000 Mules or whatever?
Yep.
After they realized, hey, this may be some right-wing adjacent group, so we're not going to look into this anymore. I mean, this is depending on where all this company was operating. Hey, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. You got some jurisdictions in your state that's using Connect. I'm not sure where all they operate. Apparently nationwide. Hey, there's a prime opportunity for you to blow that issue to high heavens. I mean, the Overton window on challenging our voting systems and what we use, that closed to about like this after the Dominion lawsuit.
Yeah.
Now it's about this big after this story.
I'm not accusing anybody of anything specifically because I don't have the evidence to. I'm just saying, as a general rule, you're just not a serious country. You're just not. If you outsource the counting of your votes to offshore, off-continent entities that are not directly accountable whatsoever to the people actually doing the voting, you're just not. You're just not a serious country, just on principle. I don't care what the ideology or the agenda of said companies happens to be. You're just not serious. You're just not. And you deserve everything that comes your way as a result of it. One of the major pork producers in the country. We were just talking about, potentially a company that counts votes in America having ties to the Chi-Coms. How about one of the major pork companies in America does as well? All right. That's why you want to check out our friends over at Moink. They deliver grass-fed, grass-finished beef and lamb, pastured pork and chicken, sustainable, wild-caught Alaskan salmon, and they do this all straight to your door with Moink farmers and fishermen that did it the way that our grandparents and every previous generation did, farm to table. All right. You don't want to miss out, and you'll taste the difference with Moink, whether it's their ribeyes, their chicken breasts, their pork chops, their salmon fillets, and so much more. Plus, with Moink, you can cancel anytime. You don't get locked into a long-term deal. So keep American farming going by signing up at Moinkbox, M-O-I-N-K. M-O-I-N-K. That's moinkbox.com/Steve right now. And when you do, listeners get free bacon in your very first box. You can't beat it. Free bacon in your very first box when you go to Moinkbox, M-O-I-N-K, moinkbox.com/Steve. Once again, that is moinkbox.com/Steve. Let's welcome back, Ryan Walters, now the superintendent of Oklahoma schools. It is good to see you again, my friend. How are you?
Great to see you, Steve. Thanks for having me on today.
So, what you doing?
Well, we're having fun here in Oklahoma. One of the things we're trying to do is get school choice across the finish line. And, we've got these radical left-wing teachers unions here that have just tried to bully our state legislature. And so, you know what? We're sending the message loud and clear that we're not going to back down to these radical leftists, and that we're going to hold folks accountable that have pushed indoctrination in our schools. We are actively removing the teacher's licensure from a teacher here who said she was a social justice warrior that was giving her kids access to pornography and critical race theory and wasn't going to stop. And so we are going to hold folks accountable here at the agency. We're going to get school choice done, and we are going to put our education system back on track.
Who would oppose that in a state as red as Oklahoma? Because I was reading in the Tulsa World Herald. Now I'm guessing because it's a newspaper, they hate you, but it is a newspaper from the Pentecostal Mecca of America, so they might not be completely communist, maybe just quasi, I don't know. But I was reading in there this week that you're getting a lot of pushback from people in your own party on what you just said, Ryan. I mean, how is there a Republican alive in Oklahoma who would dare say out loud and publicly, let alone one holding office, that they are against anything that you just said in one of the reddest states in the country?
Well, the problem is we have rhinos that in a state even as red as Oklahoma get intimidated by the teachers union. They call me a bigot for saying boys shouldn't play in girls sports. They call me a racist for saying critical race theory shouldn't be in schools. And again, that has worked on some elected officials here in the state of Oklahoma where they've backed down to that instead of calling them what they are. I called the teachers union a terrorist group this week, and they just lost their mind. And my reaction was, well, the truth hurts, doesn't it? You guys have tried to intimidate and force your way into doing things that are detrimental to kids, pushing indoctrination, pushing pornography in the classroom, fighting school choice, even forcing schools to be shut down while getting a payoff from the federal government when the problems this was causing kids. Suicides were going up where kids were stuck in their homes for over 2 years. It's absurd, and it's time to be very direct and tell these left-wing activists, not our kids, not our schools, not our country. And for some elected Republicans here, they think an easier path is appeasement. And I think if there's a lesson that history has taught us, it is that appeasement doesn't work. And frankly, thank God conservatives know the fake news for what it is now. And again, the Tulsa World can write whatever article they want. Most Oklahomans have common sense, and they read through that and go, yeah, actually what he's doing seems exactly what he should be doing to me.
So I want to go back to what you said about there are people that have an R after their name in your legislature that might be intimidated by the teachers unions in Oklahoma. As someone that was part of an effort over the course of a decade to take Iowa from a state that that gave Tom Harkin's mailbox a seat in the U.S. Senate for 30 years and only once had a Republican won in a presidential election since 1984. As someone that was part of an effort to take that state and turn it in now to one of the reddest states in the country, we actually did school choice before you all did in our state here, as just one example, okay? I understand why, you know, in what was a purple state before, we had to convince some skittish Republicans to come along with what we were suggesting. Help me understand. Like if I'm you know, somebody living in California right now, Maryland right now, Oregon right now, and I'm listening to this, I'm like, what the hell? Who's afraid of teacher unions in Oklahoma? Like, unless you're in like 3 square blocks of Oklahoma City somewhere, who openly is for teacher unions in Oklahoma and has a chance of getting elected dog catcher? Who in the hell are these people afraid of? Help us understand that one, Ryan. I don't get that.
So, you know, what happens, and again, you know, in a state like Oklahoma, one of the few places that you still see a leftist influence is education. It is a captured entity. We have an administrators association, a school board association, a teachers union. And again, they call themselves an association. They are in line with the NEA. They are a chapter of it, but they change the name slightly, and they try to pivot this as, you know, most of our members are Republican. And one of the things I've tried to do is be very direct and go, hey, if you're in this union, here's what they're advocating for. Are these your values? And trying to make sure that gets out to all of the teachers. Because again, we're in a state where most of our teachers do have conservative values, and they don't know that they're giving our part of their paycheck every month to an institution that's radically left wing. And so getting that out to all the teachers is important as well. But we have elected officials that, again, have chosen that education, you know, we can fight on some of these other issues, but on education, they get really loud and they bully the legislature. They come in and they threaten walkouts. They come in and they threaten that they're going to continue to isolate them and target them at the ballot box. And I go, guys, what are we scared of here? Again, I had the National Teachers Union dump nearly $20 million into my race, and we crushed our opponents in this race. We were just really clear. I was very direct with voters. This is where the money's coming from. Here's what's going on. Here's the message. We want to get school choice. We want to get conservative values in our schools. We want to make sure your kids know the basics, and we're never going to back down to a woke mob. And we won overwhelmingly by double digits, by 15 points in our race, despite all that dark money that came into the state. But we still have some elected Republicans that go, I mean, but that was a lot of money, you know, but they can really mobilize. And we had the union bundling money against us every week. And we just said, guys, it's Oklahoma. This is a conservative state. Be direct. Just be direct with voters. But you have such a bubble mentality from the lobby in Oklahoma City that they just get so skittish of taking these fights on directly.
29% of your state are registered as Democrats. 29. I just looked it up. According to your state election board, 29% of the voters in your state, 29, are registered as Democrats. I am someone that you know, because you're a frequent listener to this show over the year, Ryan. I have a dim view of the current state of American masculinity and testosterone, okay? But even with that considered, I'm having a hard time believing that the Republicans you're talking about are really afraid of losing elections to people who represent 29% of the state. I really wonder if it's that they're actually supportive of this. And this is all a fig leaf.
Right. I mean, and this is indicative of the entire country. You know, like, and again, you talk about this a lot, but why are we winning elections? Are we winning elections to move the ball forward and push an agenda that actually benefits families, that actually benefits the citizens of the state, the citizens of the country? Or are we winning elections to run for another election and say we're going to address these things and not do them? Steve, one of the big attacks the media does on me all the time is, hey, it's time to stop campaigning. Why are you talking about the things you campaigned on? And I hammered them this week and I said, so hold on. I guess you assume that a politician says things during a campaign and then never does them. I guess maybe you are used to seeing that. I meant what I said. I'm going to do what I said. You are going to see action. And the folks of Oklahoma, when I looked them in the eye and said, we're going to get this indoctrination garbage out of our schools, I meant it. When I said we're going to hold administrators accountable for playing the woke Olympics instead of putting kids first and ensuring that they have academic success, I meant it. When I said that families know best for kids, not bureaucrats, I meant it. And that means folks have to be held accountable for what they have done to our kids. Folks have to be accountable for in a state as red as Oklahoma for not governing like it. The electorate is fed up. Republicans are fed up with people winning elections and not doing what they say. And to your point, we see it around the country. You see why the conservative movement has demanded action swiftly, and they should, because we are tired of seeing folks win elections, go into a corner, make excuses for why they can't do things, negotiate with a teachers union in a red state. I go, why are they in the room? Mm-hmm. Like I don't even care.
I don't know. I was under the impression you were in a right to work state. I had to pay $100,000 to defeat a union that tried to strike me making my movie in your state. How bad did their case have to be, by the way, to lose on almost every count to a Joe Biden NLRB magistrate? That just goes to show you how terrible their case was. We beat them on every count but one in a Joe Biden court. But I don't know. I was going to ask. That was my next question. Why are you even negotiating with the demonic teacher unions at all? I don't understand that at all.
And I mean, I have elected Republicans. Well, I mean, Ryan, you know, you're fighting with them all the time. They're mad at you all the time. These groups. I go, guys, if they are not attacking me, I'm not doing my job.
Amen.
I come to work every day to fight for parents and kids, to fight for them. This is a fight. Both teams, only one of them have to decide if they're fighting, okay? The reality is the other team has gone to war on our classrooms, on our kids, on our parents. So you know what? The decision's been made, folks. Are we either going to fight back and advance conservative values, which, by the way, conservative values will equal academic success. When you tell kids they're oppressors, they're victims, that they are just a group identity, they're not individuals capable of making decisions and being responsible for their actions, you are doing a tremendous disservice to every single child you tell that to. It is disgusting. It is the opposite of what made this country great. We need to be very direct with that. We will not continue to be a great country if we allow that ideology to be taught to this generation. We have to take it head on. We have to be aggressive with that. We have to understand this is a fight. We have to admit that to ourselves, and we have to understand, you know what fights look like? It looks like day-to-day warfare. It looks like every single day you get up ready to be attacked. Every single day you get ready to advance the ball for our parents, teachers, and kids in the state, and not back down to a woke mob. And you got to expect it. They're going to throw a different thing at you every single day. They're going to get nasty. They're going to go after. It's no holds barred from their side. And it's time for us to wake up and elected officials to act like they are actually going to go do the things that they said they're going to do. And the voters should continue to demand action of their elected officials.
Man, I don't preach right there. Keep an eye on him. Remember this name. All right. You're listening to a future star here, I think. And there's about a dozen or so people that, without God opening that door or them just happening to be in a strategic position to help us, made it possible for us to even make nefarious. And Ryan is one of them. I mean, when we got blindsided by that strike, which even the Biden NLRB magistrate ruled was a complete and total crock. I mean, you went to war for us to give us the political and legal cushion that we needed to finish filming our movie so it could even get into theaters that it's in right now, Ryan. So I'm forever grateful for that, man. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
And can I say, what an incredible movie. I appreciated so much getting to be there with you to watch it at the premiere. And I'm going to tell you, everyone right now, I get text messages, calls every day from conservatives. Have you seen the movie? I mean, emotional responses, Steve. This is the screw tape letters for this generation. It's more powerful because of the medium, tremendous acting. This story is bringing to life for what folks are getting to see on the big screen, what we are up against, what evil looks like in today's time, what Satan is doing in the world today. It is an absolute incredible film. It is going to create a movement, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate all that you've gone through to make this happen. But this is one of those things that it's a cultural movement, and it is awakening the culture in a way that I don't know that I've seen anything like it in recent history.
Oh, well, thank you, man. Very kind. Love you, brother. Thank you very much. Tell your family I said hello, all right?
Yes, sir, Steve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, now, Todd, I've got a unique question for you about this conversation in just a moment, all right? But first, a warning from our friends at My Patriot Supply. Did you guys see jobless claims spiked to an 18-month high?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it how many now of the top 10 largest banks in America have either had to be bailed out, have defaulted, been sold?
Karine Jean-Pierre says that's fake news, Steve.
Yeah. Folks, make sure you visit our friends at My Patriot Supply. Just make sure you're prepared just in case it happens again. All right. Get the 3-month emergency food kit. That's breakfast, lunch, dinner, even drinks and snacks. The full complement of the 2,000 plus calories that you need every day. And you can save $200 on each kit, not the whole bill. Each kit. Save $200 on each kit that your family needs. Stays good for up to 20 plus years with proper storage. All right. And you get free shipping as well. Can't beat that. When you go to mypatriotsupply.com, hurry now before it's too late. I'm sorry. Mypatriotsupply.com. Again, that is mypatriotsupply.com. So Todd, you've said on this show for several years that you have a desire to run for office one day just to see what it's like and to see if you can really stand up to it. Just what is this pressure that these people and stuff feel all the time?
Yeah.
I mean, what is it really like? I bring you this morning, or I guess afternoon, depending on your time zone. I want to bring Jill and the rest of the Erzin clan glad tidings of great joy here today. You don't have to do that now. If you were ever curious or ever wondering what it was like, just live vicariously through Ryan Walters. Yeah. He's showing you what happens when you just don't give a bleep. That's what he's showing you.
This dovetails with Daniel's discussion yesterday about just the corporate influence in red states. Those places, no matter where they are overrun. But I just have to tip my hat to Ryan Walters. I mean, Pericles, Cicero, Churchill, and Ryan Walters. I got a poster of him on my wall. This is how you do it. You bring oratory and purpose up against the enemies of the good, the true, and the beautiful. You need to know how to do it like that man. And he's not Kal-El. He came from this planet too. So the only question to ask is, what's your excuse for not being like that? Because you're called to be the same damn man as he is.
I don't believe... even with the current, shall we say, I think I described it to Ryan as dim. How about not optimistic view of the current state of American masculinity and testosterone? Even with my current view of its current status, I don't believe Republicans in Oklahoma are scared of 29% of the electorate. Okay, I don't believe that. I think that this is cover for the fact that they actually are in favor of this stuff. And they know, in a state like Oklahoma, you can't get elected dog catcher as a Democrat, so you just run as a Republican instead. He's exposing these people.
And if nothing else, that's a win. Keep doing it, Ryan. God
Amen.
Bless you.
If the exposure itself is the win. Agreed. Hour 2 is next. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. My name is Steve Deace. His name is Aaron McIntyre. His name is Todd Erzin. Hey, after the show today, with Overtime, our good buddy Robino is going to join us. And I heard quite a bit about how hard you guys went after Vivek Ramaswamy when I was at that ministry meeting on Tuesday. So I thought I would go to our audience and ask them what are their initial impressions of him, especially coming off a couple of recent media appearances that he's getting a lot of positive publicity for. So we've got those polling results, and we will discuss those later today in the Overtime for Blaze TV subscribers at blazetv.com/Deace. And that's also where you can go to become a subscriber, blazetv.com/Deace. You can let us know what you think about what we think by emailing the show, steve@stevedeace.com, DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, Getter, Instagram, and TikTok. And then you can find me over on Truth Social as well, at Real Steve Deace on Truth Social. Finally, if you're a podcast listener, thank you so very much. You guys are a massive, huge part of our audience. Please, if you've yet to do this, leave us a 5-star review, hit subscribe or follow, whatever the word is that is presented to you on your podcast platform of choice. And thank you to all of you that have done those things for you already. I just got a text from my mom during the last break. She got her Mother's Day flowers early from our friends over at Books and said literally that was one of the most beautiful bouquets I've ever seen. So if you want to make sure, that's why I sent mine early. Like I told you at the top of the show, I forgot I was in Dallas yesterday. I'm like, if I don't do this right now, man, I'm going to forget. So I make sure to do it now. All right. You want to make sure mom is taken care of because of all those years she took care of you. All right. Get one of those bouquets over at Books, BOUQS for bouquet. Books.com is where you want to go. Use the promo code Steve for 20% off. All right, these are farm flowers. Farm fresh flowers, cut fresh so that they last way longer as well. When you get your bouquet for Mother's Day from Books.com, promo code Steve to get 20% off. BOUQS. Books.com, promo code Steve for 20% off. Do it now. Your mom is worth it. Steve Deace here, back on Blaze TV, and I am not in the studio that you are accustomed to seeing me at. Because I'm here in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm actually broadcasting from his home studio. Pastor Mark Driscoll is here with us on Blaze TV. Trinity Church here in Scottsdale, Real Faith as well. And Mark, it's a pleasure, man. Thank you for joining us.
It's really good. Thank you for coming out, bringing your wife. We'll do a double date tonight. I'm looking forward to that, man.
She didn't intend this, but I don't know if you guys noticed the dress she's wearing. It literally looks like the Arizona flag.
Yeah.
It does, yeah. So, there's a lot of things I want to talk to you about. Let's start, though, with Real Faith. What is that?
Bible teaching ministry, realfaith.com. You get what you pay for, free Bible teaching, So I own all my intellectual property.
If you don't like the next message, this message, the next one is free.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, sermons, questions, answers, marriage podcast with my wife, study guides. I'm an old school Bible teacher. I've been a senior pastor for, I think, 27 years. And so there's just a lot of Bible teaching there, and we like to get Bible teaching out.
Why is that important?
Well, at the end of the day, you've got to figure out what authority you're going to subscribe to. Mm-hmm. And to me, the first question is always, is the highest authority internal or external? If it's internal, it's my feelings, it's my opinion, it's my identity, and if it's external, like, is it God? Is it the Bible? Is it the government? Is it your parents? Is it the law? And so for me, my highest authority is God and the Word of God. I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I believe Jesus is alive, and right now he's over all the insanity that we call the world. And so to me, I want to get people to go vertical and to look up to God and to hear from God. That's my hope.
Everything really, I like to say on my show here that every government has been a theocracy in the history of the world. Every government has claimed that it is God or has a right to rule you because of whatever the deity that they acknowledge or worship is. Yeah. This government is the unicorn of human history. This one said that your rights come from God, and therefore government's charge is to protect those God-given rights, and therefore government is every bit as accountable to that creator as the people are.
Derivative authority.
Right. But everything, you want a theocracy. Everybody wants a theocracy. It's the old G.K. Chesterton line, when the government removes the God, the government becomes the God, right? Yeah. And so that's another way of saying every debate that we're having today is a debate about authority.
Yeah.
And is there an authority over my life other than me? Am I accountable to something beyond myself? And then whom would that be? And then how would I know that that's the right place for me to be accountable?
Yeah, and if you don't believe in that, then you end up, if you come from nowhere and you belong to no one and you're here for nothing, and when you die, you go nowhere, the result is mental health and suicidal ideation, which explains the entire emerging generation in America. And if you have to define your meaning, your value, your purpose, your worth, and your destiny, most people crater under that expectation. And if it's given to you, at least now I know who I come from, who I belong to, why I'm here, and I'll be rewarded at the end, and I know where I'm going. And that's the problem right now. If you don't believe in heaven, you're trying to squeeze heaven into earth. And once you try for a while, you realize it's futile, and so you want to end life.
I have been pointing out to our audience recently that we in the West, particularly in the U.S., because we're about all that's left of traditional Western civilization, which is the nice academic secular term we put on what used to be known as Christendom, basically. That we're that we are in an epistemological crisis. Before we even get to soteriology, salvation, am I a sinner? Am I totally depraved? Am I utterly depraved? Was Pelagius right? There's going to be a lot of people even watching on a network like the Blaze who have no idea what the references I was just making even are. Yeah. We have a very basic problem in the West. What is true? Like, do I have my own truth? Is something true on the basis of whether the acceptance of its consequences appeal to me and therefore it becomes true? Or are there things that even if they don't appeal to me are just true anyway? In the old era, Ayn Rand, for example, virulent atheist, thought people like you and I were morons and idiots. But even she recognized as an atheist that some things cosmically have to be objectively true. So she literally created her own philosophy called objectivism. Some things are objectively true. Yeah. We don't want to accept that really anything is objectively true except that which gets me the outcome in any situation in my own life, politically, culturally, that I deem desirable. I have a difficult time doing my job as a cultural commentator in this kind of an environment. As a pastor, how do you navigate that?
Head-on collision. Just take it on. I mean, to me, nuance is gone. And I mean, at the end of the day, you know, Christians have always held to something called the correspondence theory of truth, and that is that truth is that which corresponds to reality. Mm-hmm. So if I told you right now, like, I'm a 17-year-old Asian girl, you would say, well, then you need to go to the hospital because you've had a very rough day. Something has gone askew. Right. And the question is there...
Now you have a political constituency.
Yeah, yeah. And so the question is, like, is there a reality that determines truth, or is it my interpretation or my preferentiation? And so, yeah, at the end of the day, reality is that which establishes truth, you know? And so it's like gravity. Whether you believe in it or not, it exists. Mm-hmm. And what you do find, even with progressives on the left, they will deny some sort of overarching reality or laws or standards or authority until they feel morally violated, and then they appeal to it. You know, so at the end of the day, it's like, well, there is no morality, there is no standard, and you do something, they're like, that was a microaggression and that was wrong. And it's like, no, wait a minute. Either there is or there is not a standard. But in the church, I call it, you know, law for you, grace for me. Mm-hmm. And so as soon as you do something wrong, there's a standard. As soon as I do something wrong, you need to overlook it.
Yes. Tolerance and forgiveness. Yeah. What I love too is, and normally it's because you said something that offended them, not because you acted in a particularly douchey way. Well, I just can't believe a Christian would act like that or say that, or that Jesus would.
Most of the guys that I look up to all got killed for what they said and how they said it.
Exactly.
You know, and the Bible says that the gospel is offensive. And so the point is, God needs to offend you before he can fix you. Mm-hmm. And he has to tell you, you are the damn problem. Mm-hmm. You are not the solution. Mm-hmm. You know, and until you come to that head-on collision with your need to not just be encouraged, but to be completely reset, you're not ready for really the greatest change in life. And that is not a better version of you, but a new version of you.
I also like to turn it around and say, if you have such a high opinion and esteem of Jesus, have you considered becoming a Christian?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if you really believe that being associated with Jesus both requires and inspires us to operate morally and emotionally and relationally at a higher level than what occurs in other subcultures in the larger culture that we live in, why would you not consider then becoming a Christian? Why would you voluntarily debase yourself and not aim for the higher standard that you yourself are now acknowledging I obviously just did not meet in your eyes? Why don't you want to meet that standard then?
Well, that's where everybody tries to get Jesus on their team. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's a first round draft pick, whatever your team is. And so the socialists, the progressives, they've got their sort of, justice warrior, equality, putting
Jesus
arm
is
around
Che Guevara.
Yeah, he is. On the hard right.
Killed less people.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And so, at the end of the day, though, what you're touching on is really, really crucial. And that is, does the believer have a different way of operating within the public conversation of culture and politics? Or is the believer co-opted into those pre-existing conversations? And that's where I think what you're doing is more prophetic. It's not classically right. It's not classically left. It's up. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it speaks down to both in a way that challenges both. And I think that's the position of the church, is supposed to be not right or left, but north and south. We do heaven and hell. We don't do left and right.
Right.
And so what's happening right now is, I think that what has happened is everything has become political to the degree where even the church is now sort of, are you right or left, as opposed to, are you north or south? And as soon as the church loses the ability to be prophetic, there's really nothing left. Mm-hmm. It's over.
Speaking of doing better, we're already long, but I have got to bring this up. Since we're operating on my show clock, we'll make it work.
Yeah, you do whatever you want.
This is not so much a question from me to close this out as it is a request. From my perch, and I've been heavily involved in politically organizing evangelicals for well over a decade. And I've done it in my home state of Iowa, all over the country. I don't want pastors to get political. I keep saying this over and over again.
But everything is political today.
I know.
I mean, eggs and diapers and formula was political.
And that's exactly what I'm going to get to here in a minute, as to how this occurred. I don't know who is more an opponent to revival. The pastor who becomes a mascot for the Republican Party, or the pastor who is the simp for the spirit of the age from the pulpit, preaching error, because one's an idolater and the other one's a heretic. And so they eventually, 0 times 0, brother, is still 0 when you do the math. Mm-hmm. There's not a win there, okay? What I do see, though, is there are a lot of prophetic ministries that are orthodox, small o, in their theology, and yet they are preaching as if what's happening in the culture is separate from their own messages. It's a little bit like if I went to be a missionary in a tribal village, and for decades, if not centuries, a certain pagan, occultic shaman religion had dominated that populace. And I just went there and I pitched my tent, started preaching the Bible in revival, and never addressed what this massive spiritual influence down the path was. That had infested the DNA and the mind, body, and soul of the community that I'm trying to minister to for generations before I ever showed up. I never confronted that. I wouldn't be an effective witness.
Yeah.
And much of Paul's letters are confronting what those examples were in places like Thessalonians and Colossians. What were the native heresies, the native false teachings in those places that was uniquely influencing the people there that had to be confronted, right?
Yeah.
And I think because it has taken on the face of a political party, a lot of guys in your position will not prophetically confront the spirit of the age because they don't want to make it sound like they are directly attacking the Democratic Party. When in the history of the church and really Bible history, the demonic spirit of the age has every time taken on a political construct, every time. Whether it was named Baal Peor, whether it was named Nero, it takes one on every single time. Why? Because after God, spacebar, 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 the next most potent force of power on the earth is government. All right. It can tax, it can coin, it can
execute.
It can execute. Absolutely. And so since it can't get up to here, since the demonic spirit of the age can't get up to here, it takes the power right here and it makes it the face of itself. And so I don't want you guys to become mascots of the Republican Party. I love the fact of what you just said about Trump. Even if I don't agree or people don't agree, they need to hear things from their pastor. You need to hear things from a pastor you may not instantly agree with that provoke you to think. That's his job. But that notwithstanding, progressivism is not a political philosophy. The state is God. The church is replaced. The church is replaced by government. Government now teaches the morality,
and
the
raises
epistemology,
the
and it raises the children. We need more pastors to say, "Hey, that's demonic. That's evil. All right, that's another kingdom." What they're teaching here does not align with Christianity. And I think there is this notion that we're not going to directly confront the spirit of the age that calls itself progressivism because I don't want to look like I'm a partisan political hack, right? I don't want to be the next guy that basically goes full Esau and sells my ministry so I can get a contributorship on Fox News, okay? I don't want to be the next clown. So I'm just going to preach the Bible, but I'm never going to actually apply it to what is infesting the minds and hearts of the people that are coming into my church the minute they walk out of this place. That is my encouragement just in general to the men of the ministry in our era. We must directly confront what it is that is the greatest deception and tempter of our people, and that is this spirit of the age, I believe, that I'm talking about.
No, I agree, and I think behind the war is always another war. And if you believe in, you talk about the demonic, but there's a whole swath of evangelicalism, more Baptist, more Reformed, more cessationist, they're very uncomfortable with that talk. And they're like, we're not sure about the demonic. We don't want to talk about spirits and principalities and powers. Like, well, then you're not going to be very helpful. And then on the flip side, there are certain denominations that you've got to go through Bible college and seminary, and you've got to pass the tests, and then you can be ordained. But usually by then, they've sanded off all the rough edges, and and to qualify for the job, you're actually not competent to do the job. And in other denominations, they own your land and they own your retirement. And so they've really got you in a controlled position. There's other churches where the nonprofit governance structure means if you get an Ahab or a Judas or a Jezebel on the board, the pastor would like to say or do something, but literally the structure doesn't allow that. And so, the nonprofit space, to mention government, part of it is to get and to keep your 501c3 requirements has required that the church be architected in a way that meets the fiduciary responsibilities of the government, which makes it hard for the church to function in a prophetic way against the culture. And if you do that, you're going to be canceled, which is it's as close as they can get to crucifying the prophet. And so what you end up with in the church is a lot of politicians and not a lot of prophets. And so the government's political and the church is political. And the bigger the denomination becomes, the more political it becomes. And literally now you're running for office. And it's like a Russian nesting doll of the federal government. We have our candidates and our constituencies and our donors and our votes and our committees. And it's like, I think we need to flush the whole thing. And at the end of the day, though, does somebody have the freedom to open the Word of God and to tell the truth? And that is getting increasingly more rare. And then you add the social media where younger pastors, they're really just trying to trend on social media. They're trying to get followers. They're trying to be celebrities. It's like, at the end of the day, I mean, if your goal is to be a celebrity, you can't really be a faithful Christian. You have to choose between those two. And so there is this complete lack of prophets. But I would even, not to be arrogant or disagree with you, but like things like denominations were major cultural forces. They no longer are. The world has changed. Right now, it's a lot of what we're seeing the movement in is in the charismatic and Pentecostal world, where they still believe the Bible is true. They believe the demonic is real. They believe that God is active, and they believe that the church should be a prophetic subculture. And so that's where a lot of the energy is going. It's I'm not saying that God has taken away the lampstand, but maybe he's dimmed the lights a little bit on certain denominations and networks because they've started to operate more like political government. They've got massive holdings and elections and all of that. And it's not evil, but it's not efficient. And it's certainly not prophetic.
You're defining the difference between a bureaucracy and a ministry, basically.
Yeah. And ultimately, there is a space right now that is uniquely open for prophetic, Bible teaching, anointed of God that understands the demonic and deals with reality. But it is a very narrow window and lane. And I think most people are feeling that. I think even most Christians are like, I go to a church and it's like, man, it feels like we're in the 1950s. We're just sort of pretending.
Feels like we're doing all the same sermons we could have done in 1998, even though my kid just came home and told me, I really think, I know you named me Chad, but I think my name actually might be Coraline, and I think I'm going to get castrated.
Yeah.
They weren't saying that in 1998. So the enemy's up the threat level here. Kind of think maybe in response, we should maybe up our game a little bit, maybe in response to that.
But if the primary job of the church is to be therapeutic, it's how do we encourage people and give them practical tips? And and in a day when there's so much darkness, you can't just, encourage people. You need to clarify for people what they're actually up against. And like you mentioned the spirits. So like you go to Babylon. What did the spirit of Babylon do in the days of Daniel? They close the church, they compromise the believers, and they castrate the men. Daniel was a eunuch. You're like, well, is there anything in government today that's trying to close the church,
Exactly.
compromise the believers,
right,
and encourage gender dysphoria and genital mutilation. You're like, that's interesting.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and so you see these themes throughout history. I mean, Elijah right now, you've got Ahab, this passive political leader, and then you've got Jezebel, his controlling, seductive, sensual, domineering, overbearing wife. And it's like, okay, do we have anything in our political structure right now that looks like a weak, incompetent, passive man who's being overrun by controlling, domineering, sexually confused spirit? Yes. And when they go to arrest Jezebel, it says that she was surrounded by her eunuchs. So all the men who were able to support
Metaphor
her
alert.
had to be castrated. You're like... This doesn't sound like ancient history.
No. There is nothing new under the sun. Just new people under the sun hasn't heard it yet, right?
Well, I call it new days, old demons.
Yes.
And so if the people and the nations come and go, but the activities remain, that means that the spirits at work behind the scenes are perpetuating the same storyline. And if you believe the Bible, that's actually what it says.
That's a great place to end it. Thank you. And thank you most of all for brutal honesty. I think that there's a lot of people that are watching and listening right now are craving to hear more brutal honesty from their pastor. I hear now from, maybe if I'd done this show 20 years ago, people would have said, man, I wish my pastor was a nicer guy. 20 years later now, people are like, man, I wish my pastor was more brutally honest with me and more brutally honest about what's going on in the world right now. So thank you for the brutal honesty, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh.
You're like, I don't know anything else to do.
I didn't know there was an option.
We'll be back here in a minute on Blaze. Yeah. Thank you. Gentlemen, your thoughts on that conversation with Pastor Mark Driscoll for Theology Thursday?
Brutal honesty, get uncomfortable, all that stuff.
Sorry, I think Todd's mic is crapping out on us.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah,
That's
I don't think I
odd.
heard you.
Very odd.
Still nothing?
No.
Still nothing. Well, we'll have to fix that during the. Have to fix.
Screw it. We'll just do it live.
Fix. I was like, am I the only one hearing this?
No, I was
not hearing this.
I thought it was just me, but no. Okay, yeah, we'll fix that during the break. Aaron, then your thoughts.
Well, I've got 6 minutes to filibuster here, but Mark Driscoll, like a lot of people my age, really was a go-to guy for his fearlessness behind the pulpit in his previous church in Mars Hill, and that fell apart, as you know, and some really kind of disturbing things about Mark Driscoll and what happened there came out. I am encouraged, though, to hear, and this I think comes out a little bit in that in this interview, the humility in which he has kind of enveloped himself, or at least embraced. Here's the thing I think a lot of people don't understand about humility. Humility is not necessarily weakness. We kind of conflate those two terms. You heard just the same fearlessness as he always has brought to his teaching and his preaching. You heard that. But you also heard a spirit of humility. Humility is something that takes actually a lot of courage to admit when you failed. We don't have enough of real humility because we think humility means weakness. In order to bring the fearlessness, to bring the pain, to confront, whether that's our friends at Preborn who do this in a gentle way, or whether it's behind the pulpit like Mark Driscoll or on this show, you have to have real humility. You have to have the reminder of yourself, and you have to remind yourself that you are not all this. But there is one who has paid the cost, who has paid the price. That's ultimately your motivation for doing what you do. You heard actually a lot of humility from our friend Ryan Walters. Well, you heard a lot of fearlessness and aggressiveness as well. But he understands. He understands the stakes. He understands what he must do in order to confront what is being done to our children. And so that's one takeaway, I guess, that I had from listening to that. is that humility and confrontation on a day-to-day basis actually go hand in hand. And I think that comes out through Mark's entire career and story and testimony.
One thing I think you'll find interesting is many, if not almost all, of his detractors went woke.
Yes.
Went woke, went rainbow.
There's a red flag.
Yeah. And in the end, when he was at his lowest moment, he steered back into the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is fascinating. In this era in which we live, when we have seen, for example, just Donald Trump break some people's brains. I mean, the David French of 10 years ago would not recognize the David French that exists today. The Beth Moore of 10 years ago would not recognize the Beth Moore that exists today. And that's, I think, when you find out what people's true, real convictions are. When you're faced with an existential moment and point, when you're at the end of yourself, either because of what someone has done to you or what you did to put yourself there, or a little bit of both, which is usually the case. Tap on your mic again, Todd, see if that works. Still nothing? I think so. Okay. We'll figure it out here in a minute. It's almost time for the break. But when you come to that edge of that cliff, do you go over it? Or do you turn back to your first love? And in some respects, that's a metaphor for where we're at as a country right now. We are as a country, we are at the edge of that cliff right now. And, today's the National Day of Prayer. I mean, at this point, if you're going to pray for anything, pray for revival. It is literally the only chance we have remaining as a civilization. It's revival or bust, and that has become increasingly clearer each and every day. But when you come to the end of you, for whatever reason, someone brought you to that point, you brought you to that point, God brought you to that point, maybe a mixture of all those things. Do you turn back? Well, you know what? Here's what you will do. You will turn to what your true convictions are. Beth Moore and David French turned to what their true convictions were. So did Mark Driscoll. More in a moment. Everyone deals with pain from time to time. Right now, my wife's been having issues with her knee. We thought it was a torn meniscus, but the MRI actually said that her meniscus was fine. It was bone spurs. So she's got bone spurs. That's a clinical issue. So she's got to go in and get the knee cleanup, get those cleared out of there. But then we got to go back, and that's what you need, professional medical help when there's a clinical problem. But then we need to go back and deal with what was the cause of those bone spurs, too much arthritis in those joints, too much inflammation there. And that now is when it becomes a chronic issue, and that's where you want to look at our friends over at Relief Factor. You can try their 3-week quick start if you're dealing with chronic pain from too much inflammation in your joints. Try it for just $20 for 3 weeks. What do you got to lose for $20, especially if you've tried everything else? Give them a shot for $20 for 3 weeks. Find out why about 70% of the people who do stick with Relief Factor because of the results they see in 3 weeks or less. When you go to relieffactor.com, made by doctors, but it is drug-free, relieffactor.com, and if you call them as well, 800-4-RELIEF, 800, the number 4 relief, or relieffactor.com. Just $20 to try it for 3 weeks at relieffactor.com or 800-4-RELIEF. All right, we think we have Todd's mic
Am
fixed.
I back?
There we are. So before we go to 3 non-political questions, want to get your take on the conversation we just had with Mark Driscoll for Theology Thursday.
Dovetails perfectly what I think about getting uncomfortable. Listen, I was thinking when he's talking and you're asking him questions, now that I've seen Father Stu, there is a scene in that movie that perfectly embodies it. And they were mind melded with you, Steve, in terms of your notion of just no cheesy conversion scenes. Mm-hmm. They did exactly what needed to be done in the scene in the movie where Mark Wahlberg's Father Stu is on his way to becoming a priest. He's a deacon in that time, and he and a fellow deacon go into a prison together. And the other deacon begins talk, and this is a hardened, mostly black prison crowd in front of them. And this guy has no idea. He just starts humming. He's not willing to confront. He doesn't know how. You find out more about him later, how he's conflicted with his own calling in general. And then Father Stu steps up, who's been from that background, and just says, you guys get one phone call, right? What do you usually use it on? You call that girlfriend? Well, you and I all know right now that girlfriend is now banging your buddy. Right? And this is how he talks. We've talked about the cursing on the show. It's important. You talk in a way to an audience that needs to hear what it needs to hear in that time. And that's what you and Mark Driscoll were talking about. What does this audience right here and now need to hear about the gospel? And it isn't sweet nothings in your ear. You need to be confronted with the wages of sin right now. And that scene is outstanding. It understands the same kind of thing that your movie Nefarious understood. What do we need to hear in this? Let's face it, we all need to hear this at any moment. That's what this gospel is supposed to be. It's a rated R faith. But if not now, when?
What really stood out to me about the conversation with Mark are the parallels that he drew biblically to what is going on right now.
Yeah.
The eunuch stuff, the castrating of the men, the spirit of Jezebel, give up your belief system, give up your heritage, give up your culture, absorb, essentially, resistance is futile, join the Borg, basically. Drawing those parallels to where we are right now, I think that... and even I remember when we had that conversation in late March out there in Arizona, that was kind of like, yeah, I hadn't even thought about stuff like that. But it just goes to show again that the enemy has a greatest hits album. And he just re-racks it. There's nothing new under the sun. It's the same stuff over and over again. The packaging may change generationally, but when you look beyond the packaging and you get to, what's really and truly behind it and what it's really and truly based on, it's nothing, it's never any different than did God really say? And it's just a further manifestation and development and iteration of that theme. That's all that it ever is. All right, let's get to 3 non-political questions.
We all have questions.
Who am I?
You okay?
Why am I here? Where am I going? Who am I? A search and a question of identity. Why am I here? A question of meaning and purpose. Where am I going? Question of destiny.
Some better than others.
What sort of morality or proto-morality would you expect to find in a chimpanzee troop?
Injecting some levity into the demise of Western civilization. It's 3 questions on the Steve Deace Show.
There she is. Good to see you, Princess. How are you?
I'm good, Dad. How are you doing?
I'm feeling a lot better than I have been in the previous couple of weeks. So it is good to see you. Ready for some 3 non-political questions?
Yeah, people have been speculating that you haven't been here when I'm on because you don't want to watch the TikToks that I'm bringing on the show.
You know me well enough to know that that's not how I roll. I am
conspiracy theory out there.
Yeah, you lived with me long enough. I am far more likely to banish you from this show for showing those than duck them. You know that.
Would you ever banish me from the show for showing those?
Let's not test that theory.
It's a nice, sunny, 70-degree day in Des Moines, Iowa.
Yes.
Rain in the forecast for the week.
Yeah,
awkward.
How about we just don't show them for a while and we don't ever have to find out?
Okay.
All right. What do you got?
Good. Okay, so my first question for you guys is if you had to be handcuffed to one of these people for 24 hours, who would you choose?
All right.
Okay, the 3 options.
Okay.
Joel Osteen, Lindsey Graham, obviously, or Mr. Rachel Levine.
Oh, I know. This one's easy.
Oh, man. I guess I have to go with Osteen.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, maybe because at least I'd have an opportunity, for lack of a better word, to minister to him. I don't know how else to describe it. But I have an opportunity to share the gospel with Joel Osteen, I guess. Maybe then he could actually go out and share it to his congregates for a change. Okay, so I think I'd go with that one. I'd go with Joel Osteen. The other 2 are potentially life-threatening experiences, either to them or me. Yes.
Well, I'm going with Will Thomas. That's it. You harassed those girls. You wouldn't. You provided them no quarter. They were not allowed to get away from you. And quite frankly, most of the dads let it happen. Now you're going to be around a dad for 24 hours, and I'm going to make sure that you're the one who wants to run away after this.
I'm Joel Osteen as well. I mean, I appreciate the take that you had, Steve. I was kind of going a different direction because Joel Osteen and his ilk make me rethink whether we got rid of burnings at the stake too soon. So maybe I'd minister to him first, but if he's still just, reverts, this is my Bible, and then just starts going fork tongue, maybe I could inflict some justice. Is that appropriate? Inflict some justice upon that.
I don't think I should comment on that any further, actually.
Because then if you guys get bored, you can play that board game. Doesn't he have a board game, right?
Yes, there is a Joel Osteen board game. We've played it on the show before, and it is every bit as insipid as you would expect it to be. What was the goal of that game? To collect
Wonder Words.
Wonder Words, yes. That was the goal of the game, to collect
on our very first
show. Yeah.
Show, and I was skeptical at the time we'd get a second show, but hey, here we are.
They were desperate enough, so we remain. Yes.
Actually, that's an idea, Anna. It's sitting over there on the floor. Maybe you and Steve should do like an Instagram live playing that game sometime.
That's a good idea.
It's a really good idea.
I'll do an Instagram poll later, and I'll ask people, and they'll say yes.
Oh gosh, that game is hellspawn, man. Absolutely, it is. You bet.
Second question, what is something on each of your guys' bucket list that you have yet to do?
I've always wanted to visit Israel. I just haven't been able to do it. I've been invited to go numerous times. I just haven't had a chance to go yet. I've always wanted to go, be able to take your mom with me the first time I go. And the schedules just haven't lined up. I'm thinking maybe in the next couple of years. And plus, you guys, typically the best time of year to go is around right now. And it's still late in the school year, so but it would, for me, that would be the number one bucket item list for me that I haven't yet done, is to go to Israel.
Yeah, Israel and Rome, Vatican City would absolutely be it.
I want to go to Australia. Sorry, that's not as...
Still?
Did you guys just preemptively Jesus shoot me? Yeah.
They
allow
did.
your kind there now? Or?
I mean, as bad as it got in the cities there's still a lot of open spaces in the West, and I think in the western part of the country. So I've always wanted to go to Australia. It's like a completely different planet there in terms of geography, wildlife, everything like that.
You're south of the equator, so winter there is summer here, and vice versa. That's not a knife. That's a knife. Yeah. Okay, number 3.
And then the last one is, so if the purge happened, like if the purge went down, what would you guys do? And we all know you guys would like protect your families. We understand that. But like, if the purge went down, what would you do? If you could do something.
I would...
She's trying to get us fired. I mean, she's just setting... Where can we go with this?
I daydream about this question.
Oh, God.
Let's just like say the things on the show that can't be said from Steve's daughter. And she says it in the, she can still go to the I'm your 12-year-old daughter octave that makes her adorable to you.
Yes. Today is your mom sent me the picture from on this date in 2012 when you guys all got dressed up as the Avengers, you and your sister and brother, and we went and saw the first Avengers movie together. That's one of my all-time favorite photos. And Zoe's dressed up as Black Widow. Noah's dressed up as Iron Man. You're Captain America because you had a big crush on Chris Evans, right?
Yes.
And do you remember what happened when we got to the movie theater?
Yes, I do. Are you trying to embarrass me now because I asked this question, so you're bringing this up and embarrassing me?
Is it working?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. We get to the theater, and we're homeschoolers, so we're thinking the thing's going to be dead, even for this big movie. We went to the very first showing on the Friday that it came out, and there is only a few other cars in the theater. Yeah. It just so happens though, so all the kids get out and dressed up as the Avengers, and so 2012 you'd have been 11. Yeah, 11 years old, and so just starting to notice boys, right? And Anna jumps out. She's shaking her head. Give me the Jonah Hill gif. Anna jumps out. Everybody's all excited. Look over. It just so happens that one of the 3 other cars in the parking lot includes an about 11 or 12-year-old boy. And Anna's like, hiding like behind the car, waiting for him to go in so she doesn't get seen with her Captain America get up. I've never forgotten that. That was.
And now no one else will either.
And now hundreds of thousands of people have heard about that. How are you?
I'm just wondering if the purge went down, what you would do.
So TikTok videos next week it is, right? Man, I'm probably going to call up Aaron. I mean, he's the one that did the iTarget Pro practice all those years. He does what's the survival gear company we have with us on the show? BattleBox. You did all that stuff, So, I mean, I do my fighting in the arena of ideas. I think so. I'm gonna call up Aaron and say, hey, man, let's team up. That's probably what I would do. Yeah.
So, do we know the purge is coming in advance, or is it just to happen today? Just
like a sudden announcement. That's a good point.
No, I think it's like it's coming. It's coming and it's been announced. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's a different. Okay, then at that point, I would be prepared fully. I'll just leave it at that. In that case, if I know it's coming, then I would be prepared fully. I'll just leave it at that.
This is a 24-hour purge, like in the movie.
Yes.
It's like 12. It's like 12 hours actually, sundown to sun up. But yeah.
How do we address this as Christians? Because I think if you address it as a Christian,
How would Joel Osteen address this?
Well, Todd asked, "How do we address it as Christians?" Let's stick to the question.
Because there's things to do tactically. That would make
That's a great point. Let's apply a biblical worldview here. I think you are prepared to defend the people you care about fully. I think that's, we don't have like a kill list. We don't like go house to house purging people, even with the worst of belief systems. But when they come to ours, we are fully prepared to live out the divine ordinance of self-defense.
But you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. So we're talking about just war theory. It makes it, to me, a lot more likely that your family will be protected if in your front yard there's a corpse that looks like they got what they deserved. But so let's say there's somebody who's utterly evil.
And they come to your door.
No, not even come to your door, though. But they're utterly evil. You know where they live. They know what justice...
And they come to your door.
Well, but that's different. But
if they come to your door.
Do you get the point here, Todd?
And they come to your door.
Okay.
And they come to your door. Yeah, they come to your door. Carry on from there. And they come to your door.
All right, well...
Yeah.
I think that's as far as we can really take this conversation.
Okay.
Hold my beer now.
And they come to your door and make a poor choice when they come to your door.
I think that I would rent all of the Twilight movies and put my house on lockdown and then watch all the Twilight movies. Todd said, "Let's get nuts." So I got a little nuts there. I know those aren't Christian approved, those Twilight movies, but that's what I would do.
What are we doing?
I'm just going to leave it
at
this.
Why the Twilight movies of all things?
If I honestly answer this question, I'm going to be giving away all my home defense daydreams.
So vaguely and dishonestly answer it on behalf of all of us, please.
This is coming.
Yes.
I'm buying a 3D printer immediately, and that thing is running all the time. And that's where I'm going to start and stop.
I like that. I like that idea. Yeah, I see where you're going with that. Yeah. Got to keep those supply lines replenished. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just in case. You never know. You never know how much tactical you might go through in a night.
Yep.
I hear you. Okay. So this went from 3 non-political questions to 3 potentially fireable questions, right? Maybe
next week I'll be like, what's your guys' favorite romantic comedy?
Yeah, maybe next week. Let's
What's everybody's favorite Bible verse? Quick.
Yeah, let's temper it a little bit next week. Yes. And let's start talking right now about fast-growing trees before Todd doesn't take my hint yet again. Fast-growing trees is great for this time of year. From shade to fresh fruit to privacy, natural beauty, let fastgrowingtrees.com help you plant your dream garden with their expert advice and fast, reliable shipping. Plus, they're plant experts. They're always available to help you keep your plants growing healthy through the season and beyond. If you need help nurturing them, cultivating them as time goes by. No more waiting in long lines, hauling heavy plants around, or having all that dirt in the back of your car and everything else. They'll deliver it right to your front door in just a few days with Fast Growing Trees. Join 1.5 million Fast Growing Tree customers across the country and get 15% off your entire order when you go to fastgrowingtrees.com. fastgrowingtrees.com/Steve. fastgrowingtrees.com/Steve. 15% off your entire order at fastgrowingtrees.com/Steve. So we picked the wrong segment for Todd's mic to peter out, but we survived. All right, we're going to stick around and do overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. For the rest of you, we'll see you tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck, right here on Blaze TV, John 3:17.